We probably all heard the phrase that if you shoot for a star, you may land on the moon. So to me, what that means is you always have to account for as far as you possibly can go, with the understanding that, hey, I may not reach that ultimate goal, but the process of me doing daily movement towards that goal is gonna put me a lot further now than I would have been if I just shot for a lesser goal.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. On this episode, of course, I'm with the fellas. Y'all already know that by now. But on this episode, we're going to be talking about the difference between the good and the great. What really separates the boys from the men, you know? And to do that, I think it's really important that we really go deep into what makes somebody, not average. What moves somebody out into the upper echelon of activity in whatever the field is?
Let me just start off, guys. I'm sorry to take us down this road. When you said boys and men, I was thinking about the group. I'm sorry. But anyway, maybe it's better for Mike to kind of kick off his thoughts first. Let me get my mind clear.
Yeah, no, so when we first spoke about this topic, something that came to my mind immediately is a saying that I heard from a coworker, and she told me that the devil is in the details. Okay, and the reason why it really kind of took me aback is because I didn't understand what she meant by that statement at first. But after I thought about it a little bit, what I realized is it really is the little things that separate, like you said, someone from being average to great. And for me specifically, I always focus on the daily inputs, okay? Because it's not just enough to have the details or goals just long term, but we have to have like actionable items today. So when you say like the details that separate the average from someone going to that great category, I wanna break down that process and see what are they doing every day, because I know that's gonna lead them to whatever we see and we dictate or claim as goals.
Gotcha. I mean, I think and kind of what you say, I look at sports.
Yeah.
Is a good example. It's like you got players that got ultra talent. I mean, you see, we all play sports at some point, and I remember growing up with guys they were like way up here with their talent, but they didn't really want to put no work in.
Yeah.
They just want to show up on game day, and they have a good game, but they never reached greatness.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and it's really important that we qualify who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because there's some people who, if you are doing anything, you're not a part of this conversation. You don't get to, this information isn't necessary for you just yet. You have to start. You have to get moving. Mm-hmm. But the people who've taken their skill set and they're at that point where they have now separated themselves from the best. I'm talking like if you're in high school, the state championship people, the people who actually make it there. I'm talking, if we're talking about the Olympics, the people who actually made it to the Olympics. Yeah. I'm talking about the college athletes who then went pro. Because to have this conversation, for the details to matter that much to you, you have to have already achieved a certain amount of success. Mm-hmm. Now, I remember back in high school when there was those dudes who could wake up with a lot of natural talent. They could just get up and they was just gonna be faster than 90% of people in the 100-meter dash. Mm-hmm. People refuse to believe that a lot of it is genetic. But in that 100-meter dash, there's only so many, different things that you can do with your stride that is gonna make you that much faster. So like if a person is, 5'8", going against Usain Bolt is gonna beat them every time. That's just how it is. That's just, no matter how many reps you do, Bolt is gonna win that as the fastest on earth.
Yes.
But my thing is what I realized when I was competing in, hurdles, I was doing the 110-meter hurdles, What I realize is like I might be next to some dude who has been training every single all season, right? He's been going to every single workout. He's competed. He's made it through the rounds. He's really good. But what I notice is the ones who make it, the ones who get the top 3 spots, are the people who finish through the line instead of to it. You know what I mean? The people who
break that down. Though. Break that down, because I don't think people picked up exactly what you were saying.
So one thing in track that they always, if you have a good coach, he's going to tell you to do this, okay? When you're at your race, right, and you're getting close to the finish line, some people were saying that this is the finish line. Some people will throttle down right here and then just kind of coast to the finish line. Mm-hmm. And some people don't stop running at full speed until they get here, past the finish line. And it's just that small detail, that inch, that makes the 10th of the second me winning it versus you. Mm-hmm. And it's just those small details that make the biggest difference. And that takes the form of what you do in practice, what you do on game day, what you do to prepare, what you do at home, what's your regimen. We're talking about every single day. How are you waking up? How are you scheduling your day out? Mm-hmm. Are you giving your full effort, or are you just giving a good effort in workouts?
Because you're talking about 10th or 100th of a second.
Yeah. Oh,
making a difference.
That's the difference.
And I think just going back to goal setting, it's the same concept of, you know, when we were young, we probably all heard the phrase that if you shoot for a star, you may land on the moon, right? So to me, what that means is you always have to account for as far as you possibly can go, with the understanding that, hey, I may not reach that ultimate goal, but the process of me doing daily movement towards that goal is going to put me a lot further now than I would have been if I just shot for a lesser goal.
So really it's something about striving for perfection.
The process of striving for perfection. And that's where I think people, because it's a quote, I think it's a Lombardi quote or something, where we're going to strive for perfection, knowing that we can't ever be perfect. Only God is perfect, right? But the process of us doing daily actions towards perfection, we're going to end up a lot better than we would have if we never aimed for it.
No, you're right. I think even using track and what you just said, that'll run. Because the reality, to your point, knowing that we would never be perfect should make us always work to be better. You know what I mean? So if you're not perfect, then you got room to improve.
That's the biggest room in any place. Room for improvement. That's the biggest room, you know. But you, like you said, you gotta know that. You have to understand that. You have to be comfortable with that. That's what makes us human. That's why we submit to God. You know, we understand that we can't be God. We can be God-like in the sense where He works through us to do magnificent things, but we can never be God.
Correct. So we can have those moments where, because you know those moments where you had total alignment with you. I mean, you just, it's like, you know, being in the zone.
The zone, yep.
You know, but then, and then it, how you gonna say, it fades, but you reach that point where it's like you get out of the zone a little bit. And then that's when you got to work to try to, you get those moments of greatness, moments of, let's say moments of perfection where you hit the pinnacle, but you can't repeat it all the time.
I think the best example of how important details are, from my own personal experience, there's nothing that you have to pay closer attention to details in my life other than animating a video. Okay. So what I mean by that is like when you see, if you've ever watched a cartoon, if you've ever, watched SpongeBob or any of those shows where there's animated characters, what you don't realize is that some of those take years to produce. Some of those take a very, very long time. For a minute of this show is easily a month of work for some people. Try this. Everybody, please try this. Next time you see a cartoon on, I want you to close your eyes and think about how many sounds you hear. And then I want you to remember that nothing animated makes a sound. Every single sound had to be added. That's detail. Every single movement had to be, it's called a keyframe, is what the split second from moving your hand right here to right here. You don't think about it because, naturally you just do it.
Yeah.
But how many different actions had to happen for this to actually move all the way across? When something is animated, you have to move it inch by inch by inch by inch. And then you watch it after I finished editing this thing for a month. And then you see a completed video. Oh, that looks good. But you don't realize the details is what made it good. And that's the difference. What I realized back when I was doing a lot of stuff at State for Spartan Vision was there might be so-and-so editor over here, my guy, there'd be me, and there'd be another one, right? Mm-hmm. And so everybody has an idea of like, okay, these three are pretty good. But what I always knew is that this dude, he wasn't gonna pay as much attention to the detail as I am. I know that this dude, and he's pretty good, he's pretty solid, he knows some animation, but he doesn't know it to the level that I know it. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, when I see him try to copy what I do, I notice that, there's a thing called motion blur. You don't notice that when you move your hand across your face, you see like a blur, right? Yeah. It's because of how our brains perceive frame rate. Okay. In video, you have to add that in. It's nothing is there. And so every single thing that you see had to be produced. I have to be sitting there every single frame and produce this thing.
Well, Martell, I don't know about Mike. I feel smarter now. I used to think when I watched Tom and Jerry and the rest of those cartoons, like, man, now I realize I got a new appreciation. No wonder they show reruns so often.
Oh yeah,
but
work.
But that your point though, and how you that detail, that level of detail, because when it's not there,
you
know it.
Yeah,
it's choppy.
It is. Yeah, it is. And then when it is there, you take it for granted because it looks natural. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So. But going back to the whole, because I said it to say this, when you see someone who's at the height, like Bo, he makes it look easy.
Yeah.
But nobody sees
You don't see the practices.
Yeah. So that's funny that you brought that back up. I was going to touch on that too, because I think what's beautiful about going down a process is the journey actually reveals a lot of details to you also, like the walk by faith, not by sight. Mm-hmm. And when you were describing Usain Bolt, a part of what makes him so great is his genetics. It's just a fact of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The key is the person that may never be able to reach greatness in track as a sprinter, they may be a hurdler, they may be a real estate investor. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty is every defeat or perceived defeat, we can actually use as a potential blessing. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Because we're not meant to do all things. Like sports, for example, football. Every player at some point dreams about going to the NFL. Mm-hmm. We know 1% of players maybe will go to the NFL. Yeah. But it's a dream that everyone has. But the reality is we really should be pushing other things to these kids because guess what? Most of y'all, pretty much all of y'all are not going to the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what you do.
Very small percentage.
Yeah.
And we so this question that popped in my head. So I think we got to try to help answer this question. Because we're talking about, hey, we know both got great genetics. Most people who excel at sports have a genetic element in it that you just can't, whether it be height, strength, whatever.
Which is why I chose hurdles. Because I knew I was going to be able to outwork some people.
Yeah, exactly. And the work that you did will show on the track, but everyone's not going to be a great athlete. Everyone's not going to be a great salesperson. Everyone's not going to be a great doctor. So how do people find where they're great, and then how do they find where they're good? And then how do they work to be great?
I think for one, exposure is huge. Okay, you have to be exposed to very diverse activities, and preferably when they're young. Like I let my kids do everything because I want them to choose what they love, what they're naturally gifted at, what they work towards. They see immediate results. That whole process of trying different things makes you great, and it'll be revealed to you because we do have a strong spiritual element into this. Me personally, I love working out. I've been doing it for so long. It's really not even for the physical anymore. It's for the mental and spiritual. Like I tell anyone, I have some of my best ideas when I'm working out. I truly believe that's my time with God. And he's talking to me. I'm letting his ideas flow through me. And I'm spiritually led throughout my day because I'm doing the activity I've been doing since I was a young kid, which is working out, but it's just being used as a vessel to allow the spirit to flow through me. So to go back to your question, like, how do we know? You got to listen to the spirit. You know, you got to let it flow through you because we are designed for specific reasons. It's like a fingerprint. Everyone's fingerprint is different, right? It's special and unique. And that's, in my opinion, I think that's a part of our job. Being here on earth is just finding out what that purpose was for.
I think, just to kind of touch on that, but add a little bit of add a little bit to it. When it comes to discovering, because we're going on a little bit into purpose here. When it comes to discovering your purpose, when it comes to trying to figure out exactly why you are here, like what should you be doing? I've always, I did a whole bunch of studying on this at one point in time because I'm like, there has to be some sort of formula to it. And what I realized is, one, it's big exposure, definitely big on exposure. But there's always, so we're built a certain way. Each person is built differently. So when you factor in the things that you are naturally gifted in, and then you pair that with the thing that you are naturally passionate about, things that you actually like to do, and then you obviously have to be exposed to it before you can even figure that out. And then you pair that with something that's already here in reality, then you've got something. And so when you start doing that, you just notice that, oh man, I'm actually good at this thing and I've never practiced it. I've never trained in this. It's like somehow this person had to do a bunch of work to do what I did when I woke up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when you find that lane, I think it's really important to just walk down it. Then it becomes more of a spiritual walk. Because then God, what I know when you're connected with God, he starts to reveal, okay, actually, I've been moving in this direction. Maybe this isn't exactly it, but this one over here actually pairs another one of my gifts to it. God already gave you gifts and he's intended for you to use them. And so in some way, shape or form, he's going to tap into everything that you were gifted to do. And that's a part of your purpose if you just open yourself up and let him lead.
Yeah. And I think both of you guys talked about tapping into what God tells, directs you. And that's the answer, the starting point. Because too often, I think we've all seen this too, is that somebody can say, hey, I see you doing this and you're great at it and I should be able to do it too.
Okay.
But that's the thought. And they feel like, hey, well, all I got to do is put some time in here. And the time they can learn, they might become good at it, but they never become great at it because that's not what they're cut to be great at.
Now, Rodney, on that same note, now I think one thing that we definitely want to keep in mind with the context to our audience specifically, because we talked about a lot of sports. I'm a good husband, but how do you become a great one?
Yes.
Okay, do I pay attention to what my wife actually likes?
Yep.
Am I actually listening instead of just hearing what people are saying? Am I paying attention to those details and then acting on them? Or am I just letting them go by?
You know what? I love that you use that example. You got to ask my wife kind of husband I am. I know what I think of. But that's an example where every husband could be great if you choose. Every wife could be great if they choose, if they follow what you said.
It's those details.
It's the details, and also is that, and let's be real now, it's that commonness to know that God is the center of it. Because to me, at least in marriage, let's talk about this for a minute. When you take the self out of it and it becomes selfless, and you think more about the other person than you think about yourself, and that becomes the driving force, that's the start of being a great spouse. That's the start of probably being a great friend.
That's the start of being a great anything. The whole time you guys are talking, I'm thinking about this quote that I heard where it says, how you do anything is how you do everything. Because the thing is, is not on you, it comes from within you. And like you said, if you're paying attention to, we're doing the marriage topic right now, but if you're paying attention to the details that move the needle from here to here, and you believe that makes a big difference, you're gonna be better. Because if you do this every day, get an inch every day, that's gonna have compound interest. And eventually you're gonna make a big difference. The problem is, I think a lot of people, they'll start down a road and they'll be motivated. Like, man, I wanna get better. I wanna work every day. I wanna, do this. There's gonna come a point where motivation is gonna wear off. Sometimes it's quicker than others. We use the working out at the beginning of every year.
Yeah.
January to February, you'll see the most people in the gym. By April, it's almost back to its normal status from the year before.
Exactly.
Because people's motivation has worn off. And they're not committed to the process of truly getting better. They just want to, I always go back to the scoreboard. They want people to see them. They want instant wins. They want to post, gym pictures and on social media. And that makes you feel good for the moment. But that's not a everlasting recipe for success.
So going from the whole good to great thing and using the gym again as an example, talking about the small things, because you can go work out. If I eat chips, cake, all this, and I'm gonna go to the gym right after that, my workout gonna suffer. I'm not gonna be as strong. My body's not gonna have the fuel it needs. And I bring this up because we're talking about the small things again. If you want to have a good workout, you need to make sure you prepare your body before you go in. You need to eat the right food. You need to have some carbs. You need to have certain things on board to make sure your workout is maximized. Because you don't have enough on board, you can't go work out and be hungry, starving.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to push the weight. You're not going to be able to run as long. So when we talk about small things, a lot of times I think, we forget the small things are forgotten to make that workout better, to make it more effective, to build, and we do that, I think, in everything. Sports, we've been using sports a lot, but marriage, all these things, small things. What can you do to let your spouse know you care? Hey, get a card, buy flowers, say I love you. Those things. That it don't have to be go buy a car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think what's really important is when we talk about goal setting, we have to move our goals from external to more internal. And what I mean by that is we have to make those little details important. And the problem is, like you use the example of working out. All right, going to the gym, that's one aspect. We can go to the gym. All right, I'll go to the gym. I've seen people go to the gym for months and months, and on the surface, it wasn't really results that I could notice. You know what I'm saying? But the problem was, like you said, they probably weren't eating right. They may not have been resting correctly. It's a lot of other things that go into the results, and people will get overwhelmed. Real estate, for example, I had a conversation with a gentleman yesterday. He was telling me about this project, and he's like, man, I've been working on it for years. I really want to get it finished, but I have the drywall. But then the plumbing, I do have my plumbing. And then after the drywall, we're going to have to paint. But I had a couple of electrical. I was like, man, hold on. I said, listen, bro, what's one thing you can do today? What's the most important thing? He's like, well, I said, no, give me one. No, first I said 3. What's the top 3 priorities? But I could tell that was still a little bit of a struggle. So I was like, nope, 1. Give me one thing. He's like, well, I gotta get that basement done because I started it, and once I get the basement done, then I can stop the basement, that specific thing. Just focus on that, man. Don't overwhelm yourself because this is a big project. You can't do everything at once.
Yeah.
You have to attack it just bit by bit, chunk by chunk, detail by detail.
I think the closer you get to anybody who's reached a certain level of mastery in any field, the more you will realize that the things that they do that make them different from everybody else is the details that they don't take for granted, the things that they don't neglect. So like, and you, for example, in real estate, it's like somebody, with everything that you learn, right? There's big gains in the beginning. Like, okay, I figured out how to do this. So I went from absolutely not knowing anything to I know something. That's a big leap, right? Even in lifting weights. It's like you just started working out, you ain't never worked out in your life. Now you're getting stronger really fast. But then after you get to a certain point, now it's like, okay, now I gotta be concerned about my form. Like, am I actually lifting this thing right? Because now I'm getting aches in my elbow. And then those details, those small tweaks in how you're lifting and how you're eating and how you're dieting and how you're actually handling your health overall, then those become the small things that make the biggest difference. And so you get close to a Mike, then you'll realize that he's not just trying to attack the whole house at once.
Yeah.
He has a process for it, right? He's not gonna go through this whole thing if he can't do it at the same time. He's gonna take it piece by piece by piece. It's a mindset thing too.
So something you said to trigger something though. You like looking at Mike in that case. So how do other people help you get to greatness? Because I mean, you alluded to it in a way. Because instinctively, you're not gonna know all the small things you got to do. So what's a way to help? How can other people help you reach the greatness that's in you?
I think so. My input for that is, for example, I have probably every week I have 1 or 2, I call it networking meetings, where we're just kind of talking. I don't have any goals or purposes. I don't know what the other person has, but let's just kind of get to know each other. One of the biggest things that I really, really try to do is listen to people. Even when I want to jump in and I'm going down the path, I'm drawing conclusions in my head, I try to purposely just let them keep talking. If they want to keep talking, just let them talk. And 8 times out of 10, they actually clarify their own thoughts. And at the end of the conversation, I'm like, man, this was such a beneficial conversation. I appreciate the advice. And I'm like, man, I ain't really tell you anything. You actually told yourself, you knew what you wanted to do, you knew what you needed to do, but you needed someone to just give you a listening ear. And every now and again, you gotta just move the needle, keep them on track, because they'll start, just darting everywhere. And it's like, whoa, hold on, let's stay right here, let's stay right here. Okay, cool. And to me, that's what therapy is. In the sense, you go to a therapist, essentially that's all they're doing. A good one, they're just letting you sort your own thoughts out because you already know what you need to. 9 times out of 10, if you really listen to people, they already know what they need to do.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, they just may have not done it, but they know it. They know what the answers are.
Yeah. Right.
I think another thing too, I think that's a great point. One, you definitely when you get in those rooms and you get other people's perspectives on a thing, or you see other people's strategies, you figure out how is this person winning in the way that they're winning, and you see their process, you see that you try to get their thought process and things, then you understand, okay, maybe I could grab this, I could take this kind of idea. Maybe that strategy might work a little bit well if I do it paired with what I already know right here. You get exposed to that, and then you start moving in a different way. But I think another thing too about when you talk about leadership, when you talk about how another person can help you, is you help other people by being an example. So if I'm the one, if we're rocking together, we're talking about video, right? Maybe you see the film and you're like, oh man, this is good. I said, what makes it good? You're like, oh, I guess he won at the end, and I'm like, well, I think the coloring was absolutely perfect. They had every shot had a white balance that was absolutely on point, but also the tone that they decided to use in the edit, it matched with the tone of the motion of the film. So when the guy, he was talking about X, Y, and Z, and then he met up with the lady, that was actually at the perfect time because it shifted. They were using shots where his face was, the edge of the shot was close to his face. It showed that he was more confined. And in that part of the story, he also was in a confined part in his life. But when he started to develop and he started to grow, he got more space. These are the kind of details that you pick up when you just lead by example, when you get close to people who know what they're doing.
Yeah. Because as you were saying, I was like, I don't know about Michael, like, what? I look at the movie, I ain't paying nothing. But the point though is, but you articulate that now, it's like, I wouldn't have put that together. And that's for being around somebody who or has trained or who is great themselves and watching what they do. You pick up their cues and then you start to understand the details more and why they mean something, why they're important. Because you might not know why it's important to eat ABC and and have a balanced diet until somebody break it down to you and say, hey, you don't know that, hey, I need to have X amount of carbs, X amount of protein, all these different things. If I'm trying to heal, I need to have this. I need to make sure I'm hydrated. When you understand it, then you commit to it.
I think so. I mean, another saying I love is success leaves clues. And as you guys are talking, that's kind of what I'm thinking about, is because, like you said, it's extremely important to be in the right rooms and surrounded by the right people, because you're gonna learn just by observing. And human nature is, if you're achieving at a high level, naturally, I'm going to want to stretch myself. If I'm constantly being tested and sharpened, the iron sharpens iron quote, I'm going to naturally rise up, because I'm in the correct room. And it works the other way also. If you're in the wrong rooms or the wrong environments, you're going to naturally acclimate to those environments also. We can normalize anything. Like, we've seen, people living in all situations and just normalizing madness. And it takes somebody from outside with, like, what are you guys doing? Why are y'all living like, this is crazy? And they're like, what? It's almost like the Twilight Zone. Yeah. So that's kind of what I was thinking about when we were talking about just being in the right rooms. And this is why, just going back to, it starts as kids. You start seeing kids and they're looking at each other, peers are sizing each other up. And we carry these habits on to adulthood. Yeah. And a lot of times we have to correct some of our habits. Things that we just picked up by nature, we have to be intentional about I want to do X, Y, Z because that's gonna lead me here. And I have to unlearn X, Y, Z because, so-and-so did that, but that's not something I wanna keep doing.
Yes.
And so just to wrap this up, I wanna ask both of you a question. Why do the details matter?
I'll jump in. I think they matter for everything we talked about today. I think the details matter. Just going back to that whole animation piece again, because when the details are not taken care of and they're not looked at, then you start to see the imperfections. Then you start to see the flaws. Then you start to see the holes in somebody's game. You start to see the misses in because they can have a good plan, but the execution doesn't happen. Like, you roasted, hey, they could buy the right house at the right price, but if they don't pay attention to the details on how to rehab it, how to get on the market, how to get the right tenant in it.
Shoot, they didn't even understand why it was the right price.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they can have all that, but if they don't take care of the details around getting all the right things done to make sure it's a successful deal from all the way to the end, they could lose out because if they get the wrong tenant in it, and it becomes a nightmare. They done put all this time in. Now they done lost out because they didn't handle that situation right. So every detail has to be taken care of because they have them sign the wrong contract. They didn't have a lawyer. They try to shortcut it. So that's my answer.
So for me, the details matter because the small, minute details determine every outcome. What we are today is a product of a lot of little things that we've done in the accumulation of our life. You can look and trace everyone's life back and you can reverse engineer it. If you're looking at where someone's at, I encourage you to look at their process leading up. I'm very intrigued about people's process more than whatever the world calls success. I like the end goals and results because they quantify you. They say, this person has achieved X, Y, Z. But I'm much more intrigued by the actual process of what led to them getting there. And going back to like your example with real estate, I was just thinking about right now, interest rates we're dealing with. If you bought $1 million house 3 years ago and had a 3% interest rate versus now when you have a 7% interest rate, to the lay person, that may not seem like a significant amount. But you're talking about a lot of money that is the difference in what you're gonna pay over time because of those small details that you may have missed.
And I think those two were perfect. But if I could say anything else about why the details are important, it's because we weren't meant to be stagnant. Like I think we're always supposed to be growing. Until you leave this earth, you should be developing in some way. And so it's those, if you get to a point where you feel like you're stuck, you get to a point where you feel like things are kind of teetering off and stagnant, just understand that you don't really stop, you just decline.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And so when you get to that point, understand that now it's not just so much about the big wins, like I'm gonna throw this 100 yards. It's realizing that, okay, now it's more of the details. What differences can I make in my finances? I've been good. I've got a home, I can pay my mortgage, and I can keep food in the refrigerator. Great. But are you set up to where if your kid wanted to go to college that you could pay for it? Are you set up to where when you get to, retirement age, let's say 65, you can actually live off of retirement? Did you pay enough attention into those small details of where you could put your money now that's going to make you more money later and it's going to be working for you to where you can actually live and not need to work so hard later on? It's those small details, those small process steps, those small things you can do, those small goals you can set, and actions that you can take every single day that's going to make the biggest difference over time.
Yeah. I think one of the things you said that was real powerful is that if you just stay where you are, you're going to go backwards. And that's true. There's no such thing as staying where you are. And I think I'm older than y'all. Of course, y'all don't remind me of that, but you let me know that. But the point I'm getting at is this, going somewhere. There's a certain age that we start to deteriorate, our muscles start to break down and deteriorate. Now, I'm at that age, so in order for me to maintain, I have to do more. I have to stay active. If I stop, I lose tone, definition, strength, all that faster every year if I just don't do anything. So I have to change. I have to pay more attention to the details. When I was younger, I didn't care about it so much. I could hit the gym, blow recover, and all that. Now it's like the plan's different, but the details are more important. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think just to chime in, when you mention like moments and people just stopping, I hear a lot of times, people say like, oh, I'm having a bad day. I had a bad week, I had a bad month. It's like, man, listen, we have the power to shift any moment. Anytime I find myself having a bad moment, I just leave it at that. Hey, I had a couple bad moments, but the fight isn't over. I'm gonna make sure I win this day. Because like you said, every day, either we're getting better or we're getting worse. We're never staying the same. We're in constant motion. And we have to, this is the part that's important. We have to understand that we're gonna have days where just the reality is we got a little bit worse.
Yeah.
That's a part of it. That's not a part of success. That's a part of success. Learning from those days that, you know what, I was a little bit less than my best. But tomorrow, I'm at the day. Me and the day going at it. Like, we talk all the time. I got an ongoing battle with Monday, and then I come back to see Thursday. Me, these 2 days, I know I don't care what happened in between. Those are my like resets. So I'm trying to steal time where most people are just working and they have 1 week. I have like little micro weeks. So I'm trying to get like a 3 week in one. That's the way I approach it. Like, I have the top part of my day, I have the second half of my day. So I'm essentially doubling the amount of time that I can just contribute.
Gotcha.
And so, thank you for that, fellas. I think we can put a bow on this episode here. One thing to just keep in mind off of what everybody was saying here, definitely don't neglect the process. You can't just go week by week. You got to go day by day. It's really important to go day by day, because if you are at a certain point, you're going to start declining. The body just naturally is going to start declining. But if you actually paid attention to the details up front, if you start paying attention to the details now, then you can make sure that you are still in the best shape, whether it be in your marriage, whether it be in your health, whether it be in your finances, in every other area of your life. Pay attention to those details and execute on them every single day. This has been another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. Thank you for being here with us, and we'll see you next week. Peace.